So dudes, Ash and Yana are over here on the chart. They're too far that way. They got picked too much. So they're nerfing their guns. Thanks for watching. People liked a gameplay loop, and then someone said no, you can't. No, it's unfair. It's not balanced. Oh, gee, what's up with this intro? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think this was gonna be like every other Siege patch notes review? Did you think this was like the New York Times? In this video, we're so here's our live build G36. I have a flash hider on it. My recoil control is not amazing. Okay, you guys see my videos, you know that it's not. I have to pull down a fair amount from this distance. However, pretty reliable weapon. So that's a 2 armor down in 3 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go through attacker assault rifles and see which ones are better than the G36. Well, I can make an argument that the L85 is better because...
Sure, take a breath. No rush.
No, I can't. I'm on the clock, Sam. Sorry. The L85 arguably could be better because it has less recoil, better damage, and the fire rate difference isn't big enough to really impact the damage rate. AK-12, definitely better. C8 is better. Type 89 might be better depending on who you're talking to if you can get over the 20-round mag. C7E was better. Lions V308, debatably better. Mavericks M4, definitely better. Zero has like the best assault rifle in the game, or at least one of the best ones. So there were plenty of operators that had better weapons than Ash's G36. 88% of my Siege community seems to think the G36 was fine. 274 votes. You could say that's too small of a sample size. I think that distribution, you know, it's not like everybody who thinks the G36 needed a nerf is going to get off work at 5 and then skew that data back. So the overwhelming majority of people do not think that the G36 was deserving of a nerf. I am not saying that my community is representative of the entire Siege population. I don't think anybody's content creation audience is representative of the entire Siege community, maybe except Jinxie, because his reach is just so statistically astronomically big, right? He's an anomaly. And I don't mean anomaly in like a pejorative way. I mean anomaly like in a statistical way. But I'm not going to be a good citizen here, okay? I'm not going to go on the test server, compare and contrast, look at the data, and go, I wonder. Well, the deviation of horizontal recoil is 5 times more. No. Do you know why I'm not going to do any of that? Because one, I don't have the time to do it. If I don't have the time to do it, I know that people who don't get paid to do Rainbow Six things have the time to do it. More importantly, the fundamental decision-making process that was used to go here and say, yeah, this gun needs a nerf, is fundamentally flawed in its conception and its own internal logic. I disagree with the methodology that Ubisoft is using to make balancing decisions, and I do not agree principally. From the top down, I disagree principally with the approach. I don't care what data they had to look at. I don't care what they used, what they looked at to rationalize the decision. The bottom line is the G36 was not a problem and should not have been nerfed. I don't care if it was a 1% nerf. I don't care if they made the gun unusable like the F2 when they got rid of the foregrip. Let's read the rationale anyway to contextualize why I'm so irritated. Both the R4C and ARX have received balancing changes to reduce their power level in the last few years. This has made players gravitate towards the G36C. Yes, we want that. That was the desired outcome, right? We thought these options were clearly better. Now there are options. You can use the scope if you want. You can use either the more hard-hitting or the faster-firing options. That combined with Ashe and Yana being two of the strongest fraggers on attack have made the G36 the weapon with the highest kill-death ratio on attack. This alone isn't an issue. It is a strong weapon in the hands of operators dedicated to kills. Okay, so this sentence should stop. This sentence should end here. This paragraph should end. And then this whole section should just not even get written. It should stop there, but it doesn't. So this alone isn't an issue, semicolon. The difference between this weapon and other high KDR weapons in the game is too high. Why? Too high as in what? Relative to what? Too high as compared to what? The C8? The C8's a better weapon. On paper, right? You have to pull down a little more. But in practice, it's a better weapon in the hands of a skilled player because a skilled player doesn't have to worry as much about the recoil pull down. They have good recoil control, right? Despite that, Buck's win delta is lower than Yana and Ashe. So I guess because of that, because Buck is lower on the chart, that means we don't have to worry about that. But we have to nerf the G36. Finka is up here with a win delta of like 5 million. Zof's win delta is higher. But we gotta nerf the G36, guys. It's just too much. It's just too much. Access to the 1.5 sight is an element that strongly affects this weapon's power level, but also differentiates it from its loadout competitors, the R4C and the ARX200. So, if it strongly affects the weapon's power level, can you please explain why there are competitively minded players, mechanically skilled players, that forego the 1.5 in favor of the hollow? There are players who will use guns that only have scopes available for them up to the 1.5, who will not use the 1.5 and will run the hollow on like 4.3 aspect, and they'll have a giant FU sized mouse pad with a 360 of like 20 million inches, like Shaiko, like Citizen, and they'll fry people with a hollow sight. So that data metric is too small, so we can't factor that into the overall balancing equation. But for whatever reason, this data set isn't treated as anomalous and maybe an indication of something going on with the attacking meta that we need to address that's a little more fundamental. What we need to do is nerf the G36. Here's what's going to happen, okay? The patch will roll out, and everybody will stop talking about this within days after it rolls out, because it's not big enough. It's not a big enough deal to get everybody really, really irritated, because it's just one point, right? It's just one weapon. It's just one thing. But this internal logic, this obsession with spreadsheet balancing has been going on for so long. And there have been a number of instances where I've been critical in my patch notes reviews of this approach. But because those happen in individual points, those get ignored in the broader context. And what happens is, enough of these silly changes take place where people feel like they're getting actively punished for being good at clicking on people in a shooter game, which is not intuitive design choice. People feel like they get punished for being good at clicking in a shooter game, and then they go play something else. Silently, without commenting on my video, without going on Reddit and saying something, without going in the Twitter replies and saying something. The vast majority of people look at situations like this and they go, seriously? And then they leave. They will not read the designer's notes. They probably won't even watch this video unless they're just a fan of my content. They will see that, they will hear that news, they will go, huh? And they'll probably play a couple of ranked games, have a sour taste in their mouth if they go on a losing streak. And then they'll probably switch over to Apex for a couple of months. And then before you know it, they don't consciously make these decisions, but they subconsciously decide to just spend their time elsewhere. gamers, for the most part, don't have this really involved process of why they're playing a game. They just play whatever is fun at the time. Ubisoft, with these balance notes, they're really good at talking about why they're doing this decidedly unpopular thing. They're really good at rationalizing and explaining their unpopular decisions. This is not an environment where that approach is feasible or sustainable. This is a video game. Okay? You're not the Department of Energy explaining why nuclear power is good. And then a bunch of people who don't know what the heck they're talking about are probably going to be like, oh, well, what about this one reactor that blew up? Okay, like, there's a reason that we appoint people to that. We ignore that feedback because that's not helpful. Okay, but the stakes here are so low, man. They're so low. It's a video game. People play the video game to entertain themselves and have a good time. I don't care if the Excel spreadsheet is perfectly balanced, Thanos. I don't care. I don't care about the chart anymore. I no longer care about the win delta balancing matrix. I don't. I just want the game to be fun. And before everybody tries to dunk on this and go, see, you're finally getting it. You're finally getting it. They're balancing for Pro League. No, they're not. Okay? I disagree with you too. Because if they were balancing for Pro League, they would give people more options, not less. They would take into account that the game is a shooter game, and people will shoot. There is not a single thing you can do to make people not good at shooting in a shooter game. If you want to make League of Legends, you should have made League of Legends, but you didn't. You made a shooter game. I'm sorry if you can't win your ones. I lose my ones all the time. I can't shoot worth the shit. You know why I like Siege? Because of the strategy game. Because of the big picture stuff. So lean into that. Stop nerfing guns for no reason. Why? We can have both. We can have an environment. That's the whole beauty of Siege. That's what makes it work. You can do whatever you want to help your team. You can be the frontline gunner. You can be the backline support. Or anywhere in between those two parts. Now, if you're trying to make money off of the game, I'm really sorry, but the 0.9 KD support player, you know, it's probably not going to get you very far with that resume. Hate to break it to you. But the vast majority of people aren't that. I'm going to talk about the other parts of the patch, but I really, really wanted to harp on the G36 thing because, in my opinion, it is indicative of a fundamental approach with the way the game is approached that I personally disagree with. I personally do not agree with the methodology of spreadsheet pick rate influence balancing. I think it is wrong. I think it is not efficient. I think it comes up with a lot of band-aid solutions to problems that we should be looking at more fundamentally. Like Tuberal finally losing a Zota canister, and the electrical insulation is extended by 1.5 seconds after the canister is done for. Also, Maverick's torch can carve through it just as fast as every other surface. This was hugely needed. As you can see here, the freezing effect will no longer cause any delay to the torch to better position him as a counter to Tuberal. Simple changes like this go a long way, right? Look at Grim. All Grim needed was basically 2 patches, and now he's a pretty solid character. Like, he's pretty good. That's how important the gadgetry is in this game. You can just do a couple of things, just a little and all of a sudden it's completely different. Ace was also nerfed. Ace doesn't have many downsides. The Selma is safe to use, quick to explode, fast to use in succession. Opens a relatively big hole, destroys bulletproof utility. Fuse time increased to 4 seconds from 3.2. This is one component of the patch I don't necessarily disagree with. However, I think that the reason that Ace is more powerful has to do with the ranged aspect of him throwing the canisters safely, and also the ability to splay them out across the wall to deny electrical counterplay. So I don't know theoretically how much this is really going to change anything, and that's my only issue with it. If we're going to do nerfs because we're like, okay, compared to the competition, it is objectively stronger, we have to target the aspects of the gadget and what makes it stronger, what makes it more often a better alternative. And the reason that Ace is used so much isn't necessarily because he is like broken or busted. He's just more efficient at dealing with a particular kind of problem. Thermite would, in a perfect world, if you could combine the throwing aspect of Ace with Thermite's destructive potential, Thermite would be a broken character. He would be better than Ace and Thermite combined. But because there are trade-offs, it makes sense. So I'm just kind of like, all right, this is a wait and see. I understand the logic. I just don't know if approaching it this way was the best option at the time. Capkin is removing impact grenades. He has a bulletproof camera. I'm not really sure what's going on here. This just feels like just doing something to do it. Yeah, I just can't really think of why this was something that needed to happen. Capkin is Capkin, and his secondary gadgets were just, I think Capkin is in a pretty good place right now. I just feel like this was just kind of done to give people busy work. Maverick has smoke grenades now. Cool. Okay. I like that. It gives him a little bit more of a strategic play option as a secondary breacher. As you can see here, he's going to have a little bit more impact in the very late round with the site execute and the actual post plant. Yeah, you can see here site execution. Or cover himself while breaching through reinforcements. I kind of like that. That's an interesting little angle they got going on there. I'd like to see a little bit more Maverick. Now that he exists as a viable two-barrel counter, I think that's cool too. Thunderbird has a deployable shield now. Really cool. I would have, appreciated if she just didn't get, hit over the head with a Nerf bat and have the spear nerfed. But the Spaz 15 is getting tweaked a little bit. So I think most Thunderbird players, most Cav players, gravitate around the Spaz now. I don't know. Some of you might still be using the spear out there. But Thunderbird needed something. And deployable shield is a decent change for her. I am still just kind of looking at this and still thinking about why she got nerfed so hard way back in the day. So yeah, a lot of these changes I don't necessarily think are bad. I like the Maverick change. The Capkin change, I'm just not really sure what was going... It's pretty inconsequential. It doesn't really have much of an impact. The Ace logic explained here, I get, but I don't know if this is the right approach. And Tubarão, I think it was a given that Tubarão needed to be adjusted. So I'm really happy that Tubarão got adjusted. But I'm still, if we go down to the gun balancing stuff, Spaz 15 recoil tweak, okay, whatever. They're experimenting a little bit with different kind of methodology in terms of how to change recoil in the game. So the Spaz 15 didn't get nerfed. It just kind of got reworked in a way. It's a neutral change. But giving the G36 recoil, just silly. And the SMG-11 had a damage reduction by 3. Lowest time to kill him on all automatic weapons by far. True. Change in damage will put it more in line with all the other weapons while remaining among the fastest. Okay. Increase the bullets required to kill one armor operators by 1. Rewarding precision and punishing spraying and praying. I don't know if anybody uses the SMG-11, but spraying and praying is pretty much all you got. The recoil combined with the fire rate on that thing is so blistering that you can't do anything but spray and pray. You don't really precisely shoot with the SMG-11. You aim in the ballpark, you hope that your first shot accuracy is not dog water, and then you just you go for that little and then hope that it hits. Right? It's not that it's an imprecise weapon. Every weapon in Siege is relatively precise because of one-shot headshot, and the SMG-11 benefits from one-shot headshot, but you're not engaging with somebody with, say, a 2x scope on a pixel angle. You're not going to swing out of couches on Cafe and like fry somebody holding you from small bake unless you're like really, really like you're just built different. Okay. You're a talented individual. You should get signed. You should be in Pro League right now. Okay. If the other player has as good mechanical aim as you do, they're going to fry you every time. The SMG-11 limits you to relatively medium range engagements, sometimes long range if you're just cracked like that. But you basically get one engagement, maybe two, and then you got to reload. So the whole point of that weapon was to make sure that Smoke wasn't completely handicapped by running a shotgun. You can run a shotgun, and that's a viable, smart, good, sound decision to make because the SMG-11 gives him some leverage. People were saying the SMG-11 is better than some primary weapons. Yes, that was the whole point. The point was to give the shotgun leverage so that you could use it and justify it. So that way it wasn't like a meme pick or a pocket pick like Jaeger shotgun on Blue Stairs. I will do that sometimes in ranked, but I'm pretty sure that unless I got everybody on my team to agree with me, and then, you know, I really managed to, you know, pass the negotiation check, Baldur's Gate 3. If I was playing for money, I don't think anybody's going to, you know, do that shotgun strat on Blue Stairs. I'm sure there are a couple of teams that have tried it, but that's not going to be something that people default to. And so with Smoke and Mute, you can default to shotgun SMG-11. You can do that. That's not a pocket thing. It's not weird. Again, the change will probably not be noticed. You could go so far as say it's definitely not going to be noticed. No one's even going to realize it. But I think that when people say, "Oh, the game is balanced towards Pro League," like they balance it off of spreadsheets too much because they're worried about the keeping everything like perfectly aligned. When you balance something for Pro League, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to try to give more people options with a game like this, or you're going to do the opposite of that. You're going to have a formula, you're going to have a baseline, and then you're just not going to mess with it. And there's certain things that I think we should look at as baseline and certain things that we should look at in terms of adding options. Counter-Strike doesn't get really massive, like super, super involved balancing changes like every other freaking 3 months. Okay, Counter-Strike is just Counter-Strike, and the fundamental experience of Counter-Strike is something that is understood that you get. And if you don't get it, hey, you know, you can always get better, which is a polite way of saying skill issue. I have never been killed by an SMG-11 in Rainbow Six Siege and gone, oh my gosh, that broken, overpowered SMG-11. No, if I get fried by an SMG-11, I deserve it. That's the way I always saw it. But I don't know about you. I just think that this is another indication of like lowest time to kill them on all automatic weapons. Who cares? I don't care about the numbers. What I care about is how the numbers are applied in practice. If you only look at the paperwork, if the only thing that you fixate on is the paperwork, we're not balancing a video game anymore. We're balancing a checkbook. And you can't balance a video game like a checkbook because then it's not going to be fun anymore. That doesn't matter if you're balancing for Pro League or if you're balancing for casuals. No matter what approach you take, even if you balanced it casually like a checkbook, it will still be boring. That's all I got to say. I hope you found this video insightful of me complaining about Siege. And yeah, not much else to say. Deuces.